to this very special edition of the Career Cafe program. I am your host, Dr. Troy Podell, the coordinator of career readiness for the Downingtown Area School District, and with me is a very special guest today, Heidi Harrison, who is the director of the Office of Career and Professional Development at Immaculata University. Heidi, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me here today, Troy.
Heidi, your title is really cool. There's multifaceted pieces to your job about career development, professional development. Can you speak to a day in your life?
Well, there's never a typical day in the life in our office. We assist students in our office with resume writing, mock interviews, finding internships, job shadowing opportunities. We're in the classrooms. I'm doing workshops on professionalism. All the skills that are needed in a successful transition from the student to career world. So there isn't really a typical day, which is what I like about the position, just working with the students and employers as well.
So talk to me a little bit more about that, Heidi, if you don't mind. So your job is both student-facing and sort of business community or government or nonprofit facing, right? So how does that latter piece work?
Well, what happens is getting engaged with area employers for internship and job opportunities for our students, engage with employers in the community in regard to having them come in as guest speakers to talk in the classroom with their students about possibly their industry that they're in, their career path, how they got to where they're at, and give advice to the students. So that employer engagement consists of outreach via phone call, email, employer visits. I'm involved in community activities with the Chamber of Commerce, the Chester County Economic Development Council, the Exton Chamber of Commerce, which has opened up a lot of connections and opportunities. That's how we met. So just really getting out there and getting involved in the community.
So similarly, we have a lot of overlapping job functions. This idea of community outreach through chambers of commerce as particular, I call them engines of networking, right? They're places that are designed for us not only to swap cards, but to swap people and stories and provide a forum to help one another. Does your office sort of work that way in macrocosm within Immaculata?
Our office works that way within Immaculata in the sense that we support the different departments. Our office supports the undergraduate, the graduate, the Lifelong Learning Institute, and the alumni population with our services. So I partner with those different departments in order to make sure that I'm servicing their population.
So this is exciting to me, Heidi. If I'm, say, a bachelor's degree holder from Immaculata, and I'm in my 40s, and pardon me, and I've been working at a career for 20 odd years and feeling really good about it, but want a new challenge or want to make a change and don't quite know where the next step is for me, I could come to you, and
Yes.
What would you offer me?
Yes, as long as you're an Immaculata alum, you can come. You have lifetime assistance or access to our office services. In fact, I'm working with a couple of alumni right now that are in career transition. And it's all the services that we offered while you were in school. So it's the resume review.
The support never stops.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So you spoke about like career arc and career transitions just a second ago, and one of the things that I was hoping to accomplish in creating this program, Heidi, was imparting on students the understanding that career arcs are not linear, right? That they tend to be zigzaggy and shifty, and it's something that I've experienced personally in changing careers from the world of broadcast sales to here. But can you take us through your career arc a little bit? How do you end up being in the position that you're in?
Well, my career path was that zigzag. I was not the traditional four-year college student out of high school. I went to a community college, got a 2-year degree, and then I went to work for Merrill Lynch in New York City. I'd always wanted to work in New York. So Merrill Lynch was hiring in New York City, got a job there, progressed, got my foot in the door, progressed within the company, and worked my way up to being a field trainer and a corporate trainer in the financial services division. So I really got a lot of experience in the industry. And then I relocated out to Pennsylvania after I got married, and I went to work for Vanguard. And then I stayed home for about 8 years working part-time, raising family. I actually worked in the Downingtown School District.
Oh, wow.
At Lineville Elementary and Pickering Elementary. So I guess when my kids got older, I went back. I finished my degree. My kids were younger in human resource management, and then went on to get a job as a job developer with workforce development. So I was kind of in the human resources field, but more on a career side, a job developer being career counseling, and then just continued on in a career counseling role.
It's very interesting that you go from finance to education to human development, and they do draw on a lot of the same skills. Typically when I hear about folks that get into learning management or professional development for private sector firms, they usually come from my world of education and then go into the private sector. It's very interesting that you then start in the private sector and then go into, not the public sector per se, I mean, Immaculata is a private university, but that you go into the not-for-profit world. Can you speak to perhaps some of the differences that you've noticed between working in one environment versus working in the other?
I think in the business world and the corporate world, there's definitely more accountability in a sense that you're very numbers driven. And in higher education, what I like about that is that you're people driven. You're making really good connections with people, with students. And I like being in career counseling because I know that I'm helping students. I hope that they leave my office better than when they came in and more prepared for that career, that job search, the decisions that they're making. So I feel like it's not a numbers-driven environment for me, it's people-driven. And that's where I find a lot of fulfillment in being able to help people. Now, I'm not saying that in the business world you don't help people.
Sure.
You do, but I've seen that difference.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you have the luxury, or luxury is probably the wrong word, opportunity, when you're working at a place like an Immaculata to focus on the mission and vision and focus on the student. Right. Whereas in the private sector, perhaps there are other bottom line considerations that may take precedence or supersede some of those, what are in your eyes and my eyes, the primary drivers of what we do. Right. Why career education and career assistance particularly?
I think it stems back from my corporate training background in professional development because it provided me with really good qualities and skills to communicate with people, to manage people, and to really work with people effectively. And I feel like that those transferable skills have allowed me to successfully connect with the student population, whether it be an undergrad or an alumni. And I can also bring that that business acumen to that counseling session where I see both sides and can really connect better with the employers out there in the business world as well as really connect with the students. So I think it's been a nice way to transition those transferable skills. And I really feel like that career services, the counseling is so important because a lot of students don't utilize our services. And it's not till maybe a friend comes to them and says, I just went to the Career Center, I just met with Heidi, you've got to go see her. Look what she did to my resume. Or she had an internship opportunity for me and I got it. So I think once they know that exists, it's that thing you don't know you need it until you know you need it. So it's just very rewarding. And
the similar challenges of our positions, I think. But also similar benefits in our work histories that, you can speak, you mentioned a moment ago, the lingua franca of either the business owner or of the student and float seamlessly between the two worlds. You see a lot of students. What's their biggest misconception, do you think, about, or it doesn't have to be one, about what it takes to be successful or what employers are looking for?
The biggest thing that I'm seeing now with what employers are looking for and what the student would need to be successful transitioning into the workplace are those communication skills. Technology has taken over, but that employer is still looking for that one-on-one verbal face-to-face contact. Other things that employers are looking for are critical thinking and decision-making skills, motivation, and really just attitude. Their employers aren't focused on that 4.0 GPA. Sure, they want you to have good grades, they want you to have been successful with your academics, but you have to be that well-rounded person coming in. And that's what they're looking for. If you have a really good attitude, I can bring you in and I can teach you my business.
The thing that comes to mind, it's weird that there was a commercial for, I think, a sneaker a few years ago with Allen Iverson, where he said that, you know, a jump shot can get you a bank account, but a bank account can't get you a jump shot, right? That having a high grade point average it doesn't hurt, right? But it doesn't get you the character traits that are actually going to help propel you forward once you get in the door.
Right.
So it's interesting you brought up communication. Can we drill down on that a little bit?
Sure.
Because it's a common theme, and I've heard it a lot from private sector partners as well. Kids are technologically driven now and are technological natives, digital natives. What kinds of communication specifically do you think are lacking, or do employers tell you students are lacking?
I think it's really just the basic conversational skills, being able to go in and verbalize your experiences and the qualities about you. But it's really just that initial communication. We're so often used to using our texts and email, and now they're even saying, well, current workers won't respond to email, but if you text me, I'll get the work done. But you have that generational gap too, still in the workplace. And the different generations want that verbal, face-to-face, eye contact type of communication. And that's not going to go away anytime soon. So I think it's being able to really go in and verbalize and speak about yourself, especially in the interview. Be able to sell yourself. And again, that's why the mock interviews are so important to prepare.
And I have to tell you that role-playing situations, I found as a younger professional, and even now as an older professional, diagramming out conversations, are super helpful in conquering some of that initial awkwardness. I feel like we're not asking students to play pretend, as it were, as much anymore, that we're allowing for that kind of isolation. Not without its benefits. I mean, the ability to digitally connect is a valuable tool.
Sure it is.
And employers do look for it, but it's certainly not enough.
Right. And I tell my students, I say, talk to yourself. Practice the answers to the interview questions. Practice with a friend. Practice in the mirror. Practice while you're driving in the car. Talk to yourself and do that role play.
And it's interesting that you talking to yourself, because sometimes it's hard to find a friend that would be willing to engage in that kind of repartee, or willing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and being able to do it yourself is hugely important. That's a fascinating piece of advice. So we've gone over sort of communication deficits, but let's switch gears a little bit, if we can, Heidi, to the resume.
Okay.
Right. So if I am coming to you as a student, I'm 22 years of age, I'm about to get out and hit the real world, as opposed to the fake one I've been living in for 22 years, right? And I want your help to create a really great resume that's going to stand out from the pile, right? What are some helpful pieces of advice that you might give me?
Okay. The first piece of advice that I would give is that the top 1/3 section of your resume is the most important part. And anything that you can put in that top 1/3 resume, in formatting it, that is directly related to the skills and experience that relate to the career or the position that you're applying for, is very important. So education would definitely be at the top. If there's any internships or volunteer work that's directly related to that industry that you're going in. So the resume really can be formatted many different ways and with different headings. And two, the resume really needs to be accomplishment driven. What have you accomplished throughout your time in school? And then also two, numbers driven. Okay, for instance, if you supervised anyone, well, how many? If you managed, if you managed anyone, or if you trained anyone, how many people? So it has to be accomplishment driven and numbers driven. It has to be, the resume has to be perfect. There can't be any typos You have to proof it, and you really have to look like you made an effort
Right.
to do it. The resume is the tool to get you the interview. So it's a pretty important document.
So
in the process.
pardon me, something I want to drill down or follow up with on you a little bit is you mentioned the top third. Right? As an old media guy, that's like the above the fold of the newspaper, right? Not that people read those anymore, but still. Of the above the fold. So your advice is to modify what's up there based on the position that you're applying to specifically, because if I'm hearing you correctly?
But with being directly out of high school or out of college, you don't have a lot of freedom to do that, in a sense that it's pretty much going to be standard education. You can even put related coursework,
Sure.
any awards, scholarships, things like that, your GPA if it's 3.0 or higher in the top. But what's most important to be working on now in high school and through beginning years of college, if that's your route, is not so much what does that resume look like, but what am I doing to build the content of that resume? And that's what high school students and early college students have to really focus on. What am I getting involved in? When an employer looks at a resume, they want to see that you're in high school, you're in college, you're working. Okay, have you gotten involved in clubs on campus, organizations within the school? That shows leadership. Have you taken on a leadership role in any of those clubs or organizations?
And also your values, right?
Right.
That's important too.
Right. Are you volunteering anywhere? So it's very important to start saying, what can I do to build content on that resume? Because you can't go back and make up that time.
Right.
You can't get that time back when it comes down to really finalize and update your resume. So that's very important. What can I be doing to build the content of that resume?
So Heidi, let's say I've followed your advice and I've done everything the right way, and the resume is immaculate, and I get in the door and I'm sitting down with talent acquisition coordinator or human resources director or supervising manager or all of them that are interviewing for the position. What advice do you have for that new interviewee?
Okay, for that new interviewee, you have to be prepared. You have to know the company. You have to have researched the company that you're interviewing with, know something about their mission, their culture, maybe a recent news article that was a current event about that company. You definitely have to be able to sell yourself professionally and really be confident in your skills and abilities. This is your time to sell yourself. You can't assume that that person sitting on the other side of the table, just by looking at your resume, knows everything about you. Whenever you're answering questions that are being asked of you, try and pull in an example or a situation where that actually did occur to you, maybe on a prior job, or so anytime that you can bring an example of that actual experience, it's proof that yes, you went through this and this is how you handled it. But you definitely have to practice and you definitely have to be prepared. You also have to be genuine. You don't want to go in and be scripted with the way that you're answering the questions. You definitely want to be genuine and comfortable with your responses.
The advice that I've heard similar to what you said is be the best version of yourself that you can be. Because if you're not yourself and you do get hired, then you're going to be expected to be someone else. But if you're also not putting your best foot forward and presenting the best version of yourself, then you're selling yourself short.
Right. And you have to tell them enough so that what differentiates you from your competition. And that's what you really have to delve into as well.
Very interesting. Heidi, you provided us with no small amount of really awesome advice for our young people. I asked this question of everyone with whom I entreat on this program, and I'd be very curious to hear your answer particularly. We're in a time warp, and you've got 18-year-old Heidi Harrison by the shoulders. What do you tell her?
That's a really good question. I would tell 18-year-old Heidi to have gotten more involved. That's one thing looking back. I wish I had gotten more involved in volunteer work and different organizations. And I see how important that is now. And it's amazing how many Immaculata students are really involved in volunteer work and organizations and mission trips and everything like that. I think we really do have a generation right now who's very concerned in giving back. And I think that's really neat to see. So looking back, I think I would have told myself to have gotten more involved in things like that.
That's a very interesting piece of advice, and it's something for us all to think about. Heidi, I thank you so very much for being with us today
You're
on
welcome.
Career Cafe. That's going to do it for our program. Looking forward to seeing you next time.